This happened just a few months ago. I'm Jake, 32, a freelance photographer. I often look for new places in my small town to capture. I had heard weird stories about an old cave sitting at the edge of town. It was easy to feel curious, so I thought I should check it out one afternoon. I figured I could handle it. I've never stopped thinking about that day that I drove to the cave and parked my car. I stepped outside. The air was still. All I could hear was the rustling of leaves. The entrance was dark and rocky, almost inviting. I pulled out my camera and snapped a few photos of the outside. It felt normal. I felt a thrill of excitement. I walked into the mouth of the cave. It was cooler inside, and the light dimmed quickly. I could barely see a few feet ahead as I walked deeper in, and noticed how quiet it was. At first, I thought it was strange. About 10 minutes later, I heard something. It sounded like muted voices coming from deep within the cave. I paused and strained to listen. I couldn't make out what they were saying. Maybe it was just my imagination. I shrugged it off and moved deeper into the shadows, my curiosity getting the better of me. The darkness wrapped around me. I felt a chill cross my skin. Hours passed. I started hearing more noises. I heard laughter echo off the cave walls. It was unsettling. I glanced over my shoulder, but nothing was there, just the dull rock. My heart was racing, and I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. I tried to shake it off. It's probably just animals or echoes. Then came the rustling. It was behind me, much closer than before. I turned quickly, expecting to see something, but silence met my eyes. I took a deep breath to steady myself. Maybe it's just the wind. My stomach twisted. I felt like something was wrong. I moved forward, trying to capture a few photos of the shadows around me. Something flickered in my peripheral vision. I turned again, but again, nothing was there. Time lost all meaning. I don't know how long I was in there. The noises grew more frequent and more disturbing. The laughter returned, but now it sounded a bit sinister. I moved cautiously, but a sudden movement caught my eye. I saw a figure slip into the darkness up ahead. I froze. My breath hitched. Was it a trick of the light or another person? Then, the voices stopped. A heavy silence filled the cave, pressing in on me. I called out, "Hello." My voice echoed back into nothing. I started backing out slowly, my pulse racing. As I reached the entrance, I felt like something was watching me. I turned to look back, but I didn't see anything, just shadows. As I stepped outside, a wave of relief washed over me. I don't think I had ever felt so dreadful in my life. Yet deep down, those echoes lingered in my mind. They felt too real. I don't think I'll ever understand what I experienced that day. Maybe one day I'll go back to find out. But right now, I just can't shake that feeling of being watched. The next morning, I woke with a knot in my stomach. I kept recalling the laughter and the figure slipping into the darkness. I needed distraction, so I grabbed my camera and headed out for the day. Photography usually calmed me, but even the familiar sights of town felt strange. My mind kept wandering back to the cave. As the hours passed, I tried to shake the feeling. I focused on the sunset, which often made for beautiful photographs. I took my time, setting up the perfect shot. But my focus faltered when I noticed something unusual. In the distance, the edges of the woods surrounding the cave seemed darker than usual. I felt a pull to go back, to figure out what happened the day before. After sunset, I grabbed my keys and drove to the cave again. The air was colder now, and a sense of urgency pushed me forward. I didn't want to be consumed by my fear, so I returned to where the shadows loomed. I parked, taking a moment to look around. The darkness appeared more oppressive than before, swallowing every light. My heart thudded in my chest. I hesitated at the entrance. I could still hear the faint laughter echoing in my mind. But I pushed through the dread. I stepped inside with my camera raised, snapping a few photos. The flash illuminated the rocky walls, and for a brief moment, I felt brave. The deeper I went, the heavier the air felt. The stillness returned, but I could still hear echoes of past whispers in my mind. Suddenly, I stumbled over a rock. As I regained my footing, something caught my attention from the corner of my eye. I swung my camera towards the movement. My breath hitching, I realized the shadows were shifting unnaturally, that I wasn't alone. I blinked, trying to focus. There, in a patch of darkness, I saw a figure crouched, watching me. My stomach dropped. I couldn't tell if it was a man or something else entirely. It felt much worse than what I had seen the day before. I raised my camera and pressed the shutter, hoping to capture proof of whatever it was. But as the flash went off, the figure disappeared into the shadows, the laughter returned, louder this time, and it echoed like 1,000 mocking voices. Panic set in. I turned to flee, feeling the breath of something cold against my neck. I sprinted back toward the entrance, heart racing. The laughter snowballed, following me, filling the cave with a maddening cacophony that I burst into the light outside, gasping for air. I looked back, expecting to see the figure, but there was nothing. Just silence except for the pounding of my heart. My mind was racing. I had to know what it was. I leaned against my car, shaking, when I spotted something glimmering on the ground near the entrance, the very spot where I had seen the figure. That's when I saw it. It lay there, half buried in the gravel, a silver pendant, its surface reflecting the pale light of the moon. I knelt down, heart still racing, my fingers trembling as I reached for it. It was cool to the touch and felt oddly comforting, a strange contrast to the terror I had just experienced. As I turned it in my palm, I noticed an engraving. The details were small and hard to read, but one word stood out: Elysium. A chill traced my spine, reminding me of the laughter. It felt wrong somehow, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. I had to know where it had come from. I hurried back to my car, pendant clutched tightly in my hand. I drove back towards town, mind racing. I needed research. I brought out my phone and searched for the word Elysium. My heart sank when I found it associated with ancient myths about an afterlife, a place for heroes and the blessed. Why would something like this be in a cave? The questions piled up in my mind. Maybe it belonged to someone who had been there before me. Or perhaps it was a warning, something meant to deter unwelcome visitors. But there was more to discover. Parking in front of the local library, I jumped out and rushed inside. The warmth enveloped me, a stark contrast to the chill of the cave. The librarian, Miss Parker, was shelving books. I approached her, breathless. "Do you have anything on local legends or myths?" I asked. She looked up, puzzled by my urgency. "Sure, what are you looking for specifically? Anything about a cave or something called Elysium?" Her eyebrows furrowed as she led me to the myth section. I searched through books, running my fingers over faded spines. Suddenly, a book titled The Dark Legends of Our Town caught my eye. I snatched it, flipping through the pages until something stopped me cold. There was a section on eerie occurrences connected to the cave. My heart raced as I scanned the lines. Local folklore suggests that Elysium's pendant brings forth the spirits of those who have gone. I could barely breathe as I absorbed the words. People said they could hear whispers and laughter when the pendant was disturbed. Ms. Parker said quietly beside me. That I looked up at her, my pulse quickening again. "What does that mean?" "It means you may have awakened something. The pendant was believed to belong to someone, or something significant." Her voice dropped into a hush, eyes wide. "You might want to be careful." I felt a creeping fear settle in my chest. Suddenly, I remembered the laughter, the figure in the cave, and that cold breath against my neck. As I turned to leave, I heard what sounded like distant laughter echoing through the library, a familiar sound that sent my heart racing again. I needed answers, and time was running out. Someone, or something, was waiting for me to return to the cave. I felt an intense pull back toward it, an urge to confront whatever I had stirred. But what if I was unprepared for what lay ahead? Before I could think it through, I made my decision. I was going back to face the darkness. The next afternoon, I found myself driving back to the cave, the pendant lying heavy in my pocket. As I parked, the familiar unease seeped back in. I scanned the entrance, the shadows long and foreboding against the pale overcast sky. I didn't know what I hoped to find or what I feared might be waiting for me. With a deep breath, I stepped out of the car. The gravel crunched under my shoes, sounding loud and out of place in the stillness. I made my way toward the cave, curiosity battling with my growing dread. As I approached, the air felt thicker, seeming to hum with a low vibration. I paused at the entrance, staring into the darkness that seemed to absorb the little light that made it through. Then, I remembered the pendant, reaching for it. The cool metal was reassuring against my palm. As I ventured inside, the dimness wrapped around me like a shroud. I flicked on my flashlight, the beam slicing through the gloom. The walls glistened with moisture, and the smell of damp earth filled my lungs. I felt the shadows shift, but it was just the flickering beam, I told myself. Hello. I called out weakly, the word echoing through the cave. A knot formed in my stomach. The silence stretched before me, punctuated only by the distant drip of water. I moved deeper in, every step amplified in my ears, my heart beat loud and frantic. That's when I heard it, a soft whispering, barely audible, threading through the cavern like a ghostly breeze. I froze, blood running cold. It was impossible, yet it sounded so close. Chills danced across my skin as the laughter I'd heard before returned, echoing in waves. Elysium, the whisper sighed, so faint I thought I imagined it. I shivered, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see something lurking just out of sight. But the cave remained empty, or so I thought. I pressed forward, intent on finding the source of the sound. With each step, the whispering grew clearer, turning into indistinct words just beyond my comprehension. My breath quickened as shadows flickered at the edges of my vision. I clutched the pendant tighter, urging myself to move. Then I saw it, a figure standing in the distance, almost blending into the stone behind it. My heart lurched. Was it real, or a product of my fraying mind? It shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of pale skin and dark hair. I blinked, and it was gone. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. "Who is there?" I shouted. The laughter returned, this time closer, an eerie echo that rattled me to my core. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if the cave itself were alive, breathing, waiting for something. Then everything went dark. My flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into complete darkness. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for my phone. Just as the screen lit up, illuminating my surroundings, I caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow darting past me. I had to get out. I had to escape. But with every step toward the exit, I felt the laughter growing louder around me. The cave didn't want me to leave. As I stumbled outside, gasping for breath, I felt the pendant pulse against my chest. I knew the answers were still deeper inside, but I could no longer deny the danger. Whatever I had awoken, it was not done with me. I stood outside the cave, my breath coming in quick gasps. The chill of the air seeped through my clothes, and I fought against the urge to jump into my car and drive away. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was meant to confront whatever was lurking within those dark walls. With another deep breath, I turned back to the cave. My phone lit the path ahead, but the flickering light felt inadequate against the overwhelming darkness that loomed. I felt the pendant against my skin, a strange warmth radiating from it, as if responding to the shadows around me. As I stepped inside, the musty air clung to my lungs. I repeated my earlier mantra, I had to find the truth. I raised my phone higher, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything that could explain what I had just experienced. The cave felt vast and empty, yet something in the back of my mind told me that I wasn't alone. The whispering returned, swirling around me like a fog. I strained to hear, but the words were elusive. Elysium. It echoed, teasing, pulling me deeper into the cave, where I was sure I could find answers. I moved forward hesitantly. The walls seemed to close in on me as I passed the spot where I'd seen the figure. Each step made the darkness feel heavier, more oppressive. My heart raced, the laughter haunting my thoughts. It was almost mocking me now, as if it knew I was too curious for my own good. Suddenly, I spotted something on the ground, a glint of metal reflecting my phone's light. I knelt down to examine it, and my heart sank. It was a bracelet that looked just like the pendant I wore, but more delicate, its chain twisted and rusted. I brushed away the dirt, revealing intricate designs etched into its surface. Then, I heard a soft footfall behind me. I spun around, my phone casting a beam of light across the cavern. At first, I saw nothing, but then I noticed a shadow shift against the far wall. My breath caught as I caught a glimpse of the figure again. This time, it lingered just a second longer, a woman with hollow eyes and a wide smile that sent chills down my spine. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Then she dissolved back into the rock, leaving only the echo of her plea behind. I was frozen in place. Panic clawed at my throat. This wasn't just a matter of my imagination anymore. The cave was more than a weathered rock formation, it was a graveyard of secrets waiting to be revealed. The laughter grew louder, more frantic, almost desperate. I turned and ran. My mind screamed for escape, pushing past the bracelet and the whispers. The laughter chased me, filling the air as I sprinted toward the exit. The walls of the cave felt like they were closing in around me, the shadows reaching out, trying to pull me back. Finally, I burst out into the daylight, gasping for air. I stumbled to the ground, shaking in the fresh air that felt so starkly different from the stale darkness inside. I couldn't just leave. I had to understand what was happening. Then, I spotted something else glimmering in the dirt at the entrance of the cave. It looked like another piece of jewelry, but this one was larger, clearly ornate. My heart raced as I approached it. Whatever was hidden in this cave, it wasn't finished with me yet. As I knelt by the object, my heart pounded in my chest. I could scarcely believe my eyes. The piece was a large pendant, shaped like a crescent moon, embedded with various stones that sparkled like stars. It was beautiful but also unsettling. As I picked it up, a jolt of warmth shot through my fingers, and I felt a strange connection to it, as if it held the memory of the shadows I had just fled. That I turned it over, examining the engravings on the back. They looked ancient, and I could barely make out the words. "Elysium calls," it read, almost too faint to see. The phrase resonated in my mind, mingling with the echoes of the whispers I had heard inside the cave. I wiped away the dirt, desperate to believe that this was the key to unraveling the mysteries surrounding me, but as I studied it, the air suddenly shifted. A gust of wind swept past me, stirring the leaves and sending a chill through my spine. I shivered and instinctively glanced back at the cave's mouth. The darkness seemed to pulse, beckoning me to return, teasing me with unanswered questions. Before I could think twice, I stuffed the pendant into my pocket and turned to face the cave again. I didn't know what I would find inside, but I couldn't walk away just yet. I could still hear the faint echoes of the woman's voice. "Help me." It was like a thread pulling me back in. Entering the cave again felt different. The shadows seemed more pronounced, thicker. My phone's light felt weaker now, flickering with uncertainty as if it feared what lay in the darkness. I pressed forward, the feeling of being watched creeping in again. The laughter from before still echoed, sounding almost like a group of children playing innocent, yet sinister. As I reached the spot where I had first encountered the figure, I held my breath, waiting, hoping for something to happen. A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned my light toward it. For a split second, I saw a rapid shadow dart behind a stalagmite. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. What was I so afraid of? I had come this far, I had to know what was happening. That I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" My voice felt small against the cavern's silence. No response came, but the air felt charged, almost electric. The shadows flickered and danced along the walls, and I sensed something was shifting in the cave once more. When I saw it, a shimmer of movement closer to the back of the cavern. My heart leaped as I strained to see beyond my phone's weak beam. The figure reappeared, clearer now, standing just out of reach. It was the woman again, but this time her smile looked different, sadder, more desperate. "You have to," she began, but her voice got lost in the echoes, replaced by the insistent laughter that filled the space around us. That I took a step forward. "What do you need? How can I help you?" As if in answer, the laughter rose to a fever pitch, and the ground began to tremble beneath my feet. I stumbled back, fear surging through me. The shadows began to elongate, reaching out as if trying to snatch me away. That I turned and ran again, the pendant in my pocket seeming to pulse with energy. The cave felt alive, vibrating with a presence that was no longer just a whisper. Whatever was here, it was angry. And I had just begun to scratch the surface. As I sprinted through the cave, my thoughts raced just as fast. I didn't know what I was running from or who the woman was, but that didn't matter. The shadows felt alive now, swirling around me, urging me to leave. Fear propelled me forward. Suddenly, I skidded to a halt. A loud crash echoed behind me, reverberating off the stone walls. I whipped around, heart pounding. The laughter was gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. I strained my ears, but all I could hear was the fading sound of my own breath. I squeezed my phone tighter, its light flickering ominously. That's when I noticed something glowing further down the tunnel. My first thought was to ignore it, but I couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. With cautious steps, I approached the source. The glow intensified, illuminating a patch of dirt and leaves. There, half buried in the ground, was another object. My heart raced. What could it be? I knelt down, digging carefully with my fingers. The moment I unearthed it, a wave of cold washed over me. It was a small, ornate box made of dark wood, engraved with intricate designs. I brushed off the dirt and opened it, revealing several shimmering stones that looked similar to those on the pendant. As I held one of the stones in my palm, a rush of images flooded my mind. I saw flashes of the woman, her face twisted in anguish, and heard her voice calling out, begging for freedom. I dropped the stone as if it burned me, and it rolled across the ground, fading away into the shadows. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement again. A shape appeared, not far from where I knelt. I spun around, my heart lurching in my chest. It was a figure, indistinct and fleeting. I couldn't tell if it was real or a trick of the light. Fear clawed at my throat. I wanted to run, but something held me in place. "Please," a voice echoed, softer this time, laced with desperation. It was her again, but fainter, as if she was losing power. "Help me. What do you want from me?" I shouted into the darkness. My voice felt so small, swallowed by the emptiness. "What can I do?" The shadows twisted, and I felt the air grow thick around me. The pendant in my pocket burned against my side, its energy surging as if responding to the escalating tension. Then everything went dark. The light from my phone flickered and died, plunging me into a pitch-black void. Panic surged as I fumbled blindly, trying to find the walls of the cave. I felt the presence around me closing in a strong, almost suffocating force. That I yelled again, louder this time, "Please. I just want to understand." Suddenly, an icy wind rushed past, carrying with it a sharp whisper, "Unlock the truth." The whisper wrapped around me, driving me to my knees. I had to find out what it all meant. The pendant, the stones, the shadows. I felt compelled to discover the connection. But before I could gather my thoughts, the ground trembled once more, and I understood. I had awakened something that wanted to be heard. Then, through the pitch-black silence, a shimmering light sparked back to life, igniting the cave once more. But this time, it wasn't just my phone. A figure emerged from the glow, a guardian or a creature. I didn't know. My heart raced. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back now. The figure stepped closer. It appeared human, but its features blurred in and out of focus, like someone hiding behind a veil of fog. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I stayed rooted to the spot, a strange mixture of fear and fascination coursing through me. "Help me," the figure pleaded again, echoing the woman's voice. I strained to see the person clearly, hoping to discern something that would help me understand this madness. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" As I spoke, the shadows crept closer, coiling around my legs like thick vines. I could feel their oppressive weight pressing down on me, but the glowing figure didn't recede. Instead, it extended a hand in invitation, or perhaps a challenge. "Unlock the truth," it repeated, the words resonating deep within me. Before I could respond, the ground shook violently. I stumbled back, losing my balance. The radiant light flickered as the walls of the cave groaned in protest. From somewhere in the darkness behind me, an angry growl echoed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. I scrambled to my feet, looking for a way out. The hand from the figure beckoned insistently, but I hesitated. There was a palpable energy in the air, a magnetic pull that urged me toward it. I took a tentative step forward, and the glow intensified, illuminating not just the figure but also the details of my surroundings. I noticed etchings on the walls, strange symbols I didn't recognize, pulsating with life. "Find the stones," the figure whispered, and as it did, a shockwave rippled through me. Memories surged to the surface, flashes of the woman again, her desperate plea echoing through the caverns of my mind. That I glanced back at the box where I had found those stones. They were artifacts, pieces of a puzzle I had yet to understand. Suddenly, I remembered the stone I had dropped earlier. The urge to retrieve it was overpowering. If I could just hold it again, maybe I could unlock more information. I rushed back to where it had rolled, heart pounding as the shadows hissed behind me, but just as my fingers brushed against the cold stone, the growl returned, louder and closer. Panic seized me, and I spun around. The figure was still there, but now its eyes held a fierce intensity. "Don't look away," it urged. Then, I saw it, a massive shape lurking in the darkness, shifting with predatory grace. Its eyes glowed, reflecting the light in chilling shades of red. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, but the figure held me in place with its gaze. "You have to face it," it said. "You must." That was when I realized I could no longer ignore the truth. Whatever this was, it needed to be confronted, and somehow, I was the key to it all. My hands trembled as I clutched the stone tightly, but I couldn't let fear rule me any longer. And then, without warning, everything shifted. The walls around us began to pulse, the air thickening with something dark, as if the very cave were alive and responding to the unspoken conflict brewing. That's when I knew something was about to break loose, and it would change everything. I took a deep breath, my grip tightening around the stone. The figure was still there, shimmering with an otherworldly glow, urging me onward. The growl felt like a physical presence, wrapping around me, creating a barrier of fear. I had to make a choice. "Unlock the truth," the figure repeated, its voice imbued with an urgency that ignited a flicker of determination within me. I took a step closer to it, drawn by an inexplicable hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the answer I had been seeking, but as I moved, the massive shape shifted again, revealing more of itself. My mind hesitated, trying to comprehend what looked like long, flowing hair, dark and almost liquid in the faint light. It was not just a creature, it was human, or had once been. I felt a strange connection. "Why are you here?" I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of the cave's oppressive silence. The response was a low hiss, vibrating in my bones, an echo of something ancient and furious. The shadows danced and pulsed around me, feeding off my fear, but I couldn't let them win. "Find the stones," the figure urged again, and it seemed to tilt its head, as if trying to gauge my resolve. I couldn't shake the feeling that the stones held more than just answers. They might hold the key to saving whatever this entity was, whatever it had lost. That I took another step back toward the stone I had dropped earlier. This time, I could feel a surge of energy flowing through my fingertips, blending with the very essence of the cave. The symbols on the walls brightened, projecting strange beams that connected the stone to the figure in front of me. Suddenly, I heard a crack, sharp and sudden, cutting through the air. The growl turned into a snarl, and the creature lunged forward, darkness spilling from its maw like ink in water. Panic surged through me, but I kept my eyes locked on the figure. "Trust!" it shouted. "You are stronger than you think." With its words echoing in my mind, I grasped the stone tightly, my palms sweating. The moment the stone met the air, I felt a jolt, a surge of clarity. Images flickered into my mind, flashes of the woman, the cave, and a past steeped in shadows and secrets. She had tried to protect this place. The creature snarled again, closing the distance, and I knew I had only moments left. The figure's glowing hand extended toward me, desperate yet hopeful. "Fight for the truth," it urged. Then everything shifted again. The ground trembled with such ferocity that I nearly lost my footing. A tear in the cave wall formed, dark and angry, and from it poured a wave of shadows that threatened to engulf me whole. That's when I realized I was trapped. The figure, the creature, even the connection I felt to the stones, they were all part of a greater battle, and I had a choice to make. "Choose!" the figure shouted as the shadows screamed their frustration around me. But before I could respond, a piercing light erupted from the stone in my hand, blinding and beautiful. In that moment, I knew I was no longer just a bystander. Whatever happened next, I was part of this story now, and I felt the weight of destiny on my shoulders. The blinding light seemed to pulse through me, igniting a fire in my core, consuming the darkness that had clung to my spirit since I first stepped into the cave. I stood there, heart racing, the thrum of the pendant in my pocket resonating with the energy surging around me. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if they sensed something shifting in the balance of control. "Choose!" the figure cried again. I thought of the woman, the ghostly figure that had pleaded for help. I thought of the laughter that echoed through the cavern, alive with 1,000 whispers, a cacophony of intertwining destinies. The connection I felt to the stones, to the stories unearthing themselves beneath the surface, wrapped around me, anchoring me in this tumultuous moment. With a deep breath, I took a step forward, embracing the surge of light that radiated from the stone. "I will help you," I shouted, not just to the trapped figure but to whatever force lay behind the shadows. My voice rang out like a bell, a declaration in the darkness. As if in response, the growl of the creature escalated, vibrating through the air with a dreadful intensity. I felt the unmistakable weight of its presence, a predator shrouded in anguish. But I wouldn't back down now. I raised the stone high above my head, and the warmth surged in my palm, stretching toward the darkness with an intensity one hadn't anticipated. The shadows writhed and screamed, a tumultuous flow of energy battling against the newfound light. I felt the presence of the figure behind me, urging me forward. "Unlock the truth!" it echoed, and I grasped the stone tighter. It was momentary chaos as the shadows whipped around me, and I knew the final confrontation was upon us. "Reveal yourself!" I shouted into the void, defiance binding my spirit. The glowing light from the stone pulsed, illuminating the cavern, pushing against the encroaching darkness. The growl shifted into a roar, and I braced myself for impact. Suddenly, there was silence, an intense stillness that blanketed the chaos. And then, the shadows began to pull back, not with reluctance but with an unerring sense of purpose, as if they were being drawn into the light. I felt a strange release in energy coiling up from deep within the earth itself, responding to my call. The ambient glow grew brighter, illuminating the figures of the past, those who had wandered here before me. I saw flashes of their lives, trapped in echoes that intertwined among the shadows. But they were not lost, they whispered their stories into the wind, shouting, "Release us." In that moment, I understood. The stones and the pendants were more than artifacts. They were keys to the past, vessels of memories and lost hopes. With a sudden realization, I reached for the pendant in my pocket and held it tightly alongside the glowing stone. "Together!" I shouted, willing the stories of those souls to intertwine in the light. A blinding flash erupted from my hands as light and shadow collided violently. The ground shook beneath my feet, and I felt the very essence of the cave responding to my outburst. A kaleidoscope of light erupted as the fabric of that dark reality began to tear and scatter, then it exploded into a brilliant shower of luminous fragments, scattering across the cave like stars bursting in the night. The roar of the creature echoed one last time before being swallowed by the light. The shadows dissolved, subsiding into the walls as the cavern pulsed with warmth. Everything turned white, just as quickly, the light faded. I blinked, the cave around me now bathed in an ethereal glow. The air felt lighter, the oppressive heaviness gone. I stumbled backward, gasping, but felt something cool and solid beneath my back. I looked down to see the pendant still shimmering in my hand, all other remnants of darkness banished, but before I could breathe a sigh of relief, I sensed a lingering presence, a flicker of movement in the periphery. I spun around to see the figure from before, now just an outline in the fading light. "Thank you," it breathed, voice softer, more serene. "You have set us free." And just like that, it began to dissolve, merging with the cave's gentle light until there was nothing left but the lingering hum of energy vibrating through the stones, but my heart sank as I noticed other shadows skirting just beyond my vision, fleeting whispers echoing in the stillness. I could still feel the heaviness of the cave like a remnant of an unbroken tether. No more laughter, but the air grew thick with questions. Though I had unveiled something monumental, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were more truths buried deeper within the echoes of this cave that I had survived, I had escaped. But could I really call this closure? I turned towards the entrance, my chest tightening once again. A part of me knew I might have set something free, but at what cost? With lingering unease and unanswered questions threading their way through my mind, I stepped back into the daylight, now feeling the world outside differently. Sometimes, I still think about that day, about the whispers that chased me into the cave and the power of the light that responded in kind. I never went back to that spot, yet I can still see shadows playing tricks just at the edge of my vision. I moved to a different town shortly after, trying to shake the ties that still bind me to the mysteries of that cave. But sometimes, even in the bright light of day, I wonder if I really opened a door or merely peeked through a crack. Some questions still linger, and I doubt they'll ever be answered. And perhaps, that's okay.